Hey everybody, the Reswirl here, and welcome back to more of Planescape Torment. Okay. Oh boy, I've already spoken a lot today from all the shit I've recorded, so this is gonna hurt. I think it'll be fine. Smiles pleasantly at you. Greetings again. Have you come to trade tales? Of course. Right, yeah, the only thing I've not spoke about... Wait, I spoke about the Isle of Dangerous Angles, have I not? Isle. The alley is what I meant to say. God, there's gonna be a lot of dialogue for this place, I think. Either way, let's go. Tell her the story of the Silent King. Yves leans forward as you tell the tale of a hidden nation of undead, ruled by a corpse who hasn't spoken in 1,000 years. She seems to devour your every word. As you finish, she smiles at you. I shall remember this tale. Now I have one for you. The petitioner at the gate. Go on. It was far after peak when the distant pounding was heard at the gates of the prison. Okay. Karis, the oldest mercy killer known to the faction, dragged himself from his post, making his way down the hill to the great gates that separated the punished from the outside world. The pounding did not fade as he reached the gate and spoke to it. He called out and received no answer. He opened the gate, far from feeling caution, but a strange compelling sensation. Go on. A haggard figure was on bent knees just beyond the door. Her hands were bloody from where they had been pounding against the gate, and her breath came in laboured gasps. As the flickering light from the interior prison chamber poured across the cobbles, she glanced up at the mercy killer who stood framed in the doorway, and began to sob with relief. Go on. He felt himself mirrored in all but his gender as he stared at the woman. He was stirred by her presence. Karis found himself unsure of what to say, so he simply waited for the woman to provide an explanation. She did. It was a simple statement, but of utmost importance, and it made Karis, whose knees ached painfully with every movement, bend down and help the woman to her feet. He brought her in from the outside, guiding her gently into the passage beyond. She had said that an injustice had been done, and that was all that Karis needed to hear. In the end, it came to pass that she could not fulfill her duty as a Fury, for a man guilty of a blood crime had died unpunished. She begged Karis and the Mercy Killers for aid, and so they executed her. She had failed in her charge. Jesus. Another tale of the Dream Builders. Yves leans forward as you tell the tale of a man who lost his ability to dream, and commissioned the construction of a device that would allow him to dream once more. She seems to devour your every word. As you finish, she smiles back at you. I shall remember this tale, and now I have one for you. The Beekeepers Tale. Once upon a time, a man came up onto a field of hives. Upon this field he had thousands of bees, but there was not a single bee to be seen. Amongst the hives walked a beekeeper, who was extracting the honeycomb from the apparently empty hives. Yet despite the lack of insects, the drone continued. The man was mystified. He made to speak with the beekeeper, who lifted his hood to reveal a creature made entirely of bees. A mouth-shaped depression formed in the mass of insects which made up the thing's face. The depression moved as the creature spoke, but the drone was such that its words could not be understood. The man died at that moment, trying to understand what it was that the beekeeper said. Another tale. Requin's Curse. Yves leans forward as you tell her the tale of Requin's odoriferous curse. She seems to devour your every word. As you finish, she smiles at you. The Gilded Tale. Upon the plain of Isgard, in the Gilded Hall, where those sensates that seek the pleasure of gullet and loin can be found, they indulge these passions in earnest, never realizing that the doors of the hall never open, and that there is no clear path back to the civic fest hall. They are the unwanted sensates, the ones that do not truly believe in the faction, but instead seek only pleasure for pleasure's sake. Are prisoners who do not realize they are such truly prisoners. I'm certain I've already gone over this. If you tell the tale of the Alley of Dangerous Angles, and how it came to be, she seems to devour your every word. As you finish, she smiles at you. The Lady Suitor. No, I must not have done this. The tale concerns a suitor of the Lady of Pain. One of many over the years, he was a young man who was obsessed with the mistress of Sigil. He saw her everywhere, in every corner of the city, or of her city. He would hear the rustling of her robes, the scrape of her blades, and grew infatuated beyond all reason. He hoped that if he worshipped her, that he would at last be able to see her, and so worship her he did. He was found dead on the blood-soaked steps of his own home, grievous stab wounds covering the whole of his body, but his eyes were open wide and upon his lips was a triumphant smile. The story of Ignis. Yves leans forward as you tell the tale of Ignis and the art that burnt within him. She seems to devour your every word. The execution. Once a murderer roamed Sigil streets, a black-hearted man by the name of Cossacks. He had been blessed by the Abyssal Mother so that no one could strike him with an intent to harm or they themselves would die. He reveled in his blessing, using it to start fights and murder anyone who crossed his path. During one of his murderous rages, he was captured by the Harmonium with nets and brought before the governors. The trial was short, final, yet Cossacks laughed at the proceedings, knowing that no one among them could harm him without dying horribly. At the final day of his trial, he was proclaimed guilty and sentenced to death. Cossack's sentence, proclaimed by the governors, was this: confinement for thrice 30 days, during which time you shall give up your life. Be declared dead, and your body removed when all signs of life cease. Cossacks laughed and dared any of them to try and harm him, yet the court was silent. Oh wow. The mercy killers led Cossacks to their prison and locked him in a dark, empty cell. There was no cot, no lights, and the only door was a steel grate in the ceiling. As they lowered him into the cell, the mercy killer told him, "In the corner of your cell will you find a chalice. It holds poison. Your death will be swift. Aren't you going to execute me?" Cossacks snarled at the guard. "No one in Sigil shall lay a hand on you with intent to harm," came the mercy killer's reply. "Then I spit on your cowardice." Cossacks laughed, feeling for the chalice in the darkness, then hurling it at the wall and shattering it. Its poison dripped from the walls and dried until it was no more. "Come then, you'll have to try and kill me now. Starvation?" But there was no response from the grate in the ceiling. It was then that Cossacks noticed the cell had no cot, no lights, and no food and water. All that remained was the shattered chalice, the poison gone, and for the first time, Cossacks knew the icy touch of death's approach. In twice 30 days, the grate opened, and Cossack's body, now cold, was taken from the cell. It had given up its life, and the execution had been carried out. Damn. One of my companions. Okay. Mort, do you have a story to trade? Me? Why do I have to tell a story? Just tell a story, Mort. Fine, fine. An elderly man was sitting alone on a dark path, right? He wasn't certain on which direction to go, and he'd forgotten both where he was travelling to and who he was. He sat down for a moment to rest his weary legs, and suddenly looked up to see an elderly woman before him. She grinned toothlessly and with a cackle spoke. "Now your third wish, what will it be? Go on, Mort." "Third wish?" The man was baffled. "How can it be a third wish if I haven't had a first or second wish?" "You've had 2 wishes already," the hag said, "but your second wish was for me to return everything to the way it was before you made your first wish. That's why you remember nothing, because everything is the way it was before you made any wishes." She cackled at the poor Burke. "So it is that you have 1 wish left." "Alright," said the man, "I don't believe this, but there's no harm in wishing. I wish to know who I am." "Funny," said the old woman as she granted his wish and disappeared forever. "That was your first wish." "Huh." Yves smiles. "An interesting tale, Mort, and now I've one for you and your companions. The Fiend's Game." Oh wow, I really like this. I really like Yves. She's, got some very cool stories to tell. A fiend sometimes wandered the wilderness of a certain prime world in the guise of a friendly old man. One day he came upon some hunters in the wood. "What are you doing?" the fiend asked. The hunters told him, and the fiend nodded. I have never been on a hunt before." The hunters invited the old man to come along, and the group eventually came upon a glade where several deer were grazing. The hunters carried crossbows but did not fire, and the fiend asked them why. "They are unarmed," the hunters chuckled, patting their crossbows. "We hunt nothing that does not have the ability to defend itself. After all, where is the sport in that?" The fiend nodded at this, and promptly gated in 3 of his fellows. The hunters led them on a merry chase, but eventually they were caught and eaten. Oh wow. Ask a companion. "Anna, do you have a story?" "I am no good at telling such things, I'm not." She frowns and waves her hands as if trying to shoo away the idea. "Don't you be asking me for such nonsense now." Smiles at Anna. "But I would very much like to hear your story." There we go. Please. Please share your story, Anna. "Come on already, fiendling. You already have 1 tale you won't part with." Anna looks uncomfortable, her tail lashing slowly back and forth. Well, I know one story. She suddenly becomes angry, glaring at Yves. But you might not like it, you won't, so don't be blaming me for you choking it out at me. Yeah, go on. Go ahead. Anna scowls and finally relents with an exasperated sigh. I heard a story when I was a wee lass. This Burke's walking home real late, near Anti-Peak, and passes an old toothless crone in a dark and otherwise empty street. Where you going, she asks him. Home to me wife and Kip, he says. Near the Slags, she asks him. Sure enough, he says. So she asks him a favour to take a box she's got to Deader's Pit and give it to the woman there. Now this Burke's a real sap, too nice to say no despite the fact he's sure something's not quite right about this old crone, and agrees. But what's the woman's name, he asks. Where does she live? Where shall I look for her if she's not by Deader's Pit? The woman hands him the box, a wooden thing wrapped in coloured cloth, and tells him to just go on and she'll be there. Finally she warns him, and whatever you do, do not open the box. Go on. So he takes it home with him and hides it in the rafters, thinking he'll bring it by Deader's Pit when it's lights out. His wife, though, seeing him hide in the box, gets right jealous, thinking it's a gift for a lover or something, and opens it up as soon as he's not looking. Well, turns out the box was full of gouged out eyes and seven male members with their hair still on them. Her scream brought the Burke running. He remembered what the crone said, got right scared and wrapped the box back up. He went out straight away to Deader's Pit, and sure enough there was another old hag waiting there for him. He hands her the box and she says to him, this box has been opened and looked into. The poor Burke tries to deny it, but she gets this dreadful look on her face. You've done something horrible, she tells him, then disappears. That done, he hurries back to his Kip. Uh-oh. He's feeling ill when he gets back and takes to bed, his wife bitterly regretting opening the box and all, but it was too late. The next day he died of a rotten disease, and the first thing to go were his eyes and stem. Jesus! Anna nods grimly, her tale complete. Oh wow. That was a wonderful tale, Anna. You should never hesitate to share it. Now I've one for you and your companions. The Parched Land. Once a large village was struck by a terrible drought. A farmer journeyed to the worshipping stone and again implored it as to the cause of the drought. He asked, or drought even. He asked the stone why it did nothing when the fields were parched and dying, why the animals and the people suffered while the stone did not a thing. Have we not given enough offerings? The farmer asked, begging, almost upon his hand and knees, but the stone did not respond. It merely sat and cast its shadow. Damn. So who else? Dokon. Ooh. What? Dokon nods solemnly. I shall impart the tale of Ak-Ali drowning. Dokon tells the tale of Ak-Ali, a foolish Githzerai of myth who had become lost in the chaos of limbo. Normally a single Githzerai may use their focus and mental discipline to form the chaos around them into a small, habitable environment. Ak-Ali, however, asked so many useless and unfocused questions in her quest to return home that her Isle of Matter dissolved around her and she drowned. I remember this chick. Yves smiles. Fascinating, Dokon. Let me share with you and your companion another version of your tale that I have heard. Dokon looks attentive and perhaps a little surprised. Go on. Yves goes on to tell a different version of Dokon's tale, in which Ak-Ali was driven from the Githzerai city of Shrek-Lor for her constant useless prattling. One day she encountered a Sladi on his way to the spawning stone. She hastily erected a wall of chaos matter which even the ravenous Sladi found difficult to break down. Hungrily, it waited and spoke to her through the wall. She asked it questions, and as she became more absorbed in her pointless queries about and the Sladi's answers, her own wall decayed and collapsed upon her, and thus she drowned in the matter of limbo. I don't think we have any other questions. Companions. Companions. Any more stories to tell? Whoa. Okay, yeah, I forgot. I have to ask you questions now. Why are you called the Tail Chaser? Once upon a time, a girl came to an oracle who was rumoured to know many things and asked a bit of boon. Her life was in need of direction, so she asked this oracle as to what would give her purpose. Now, the oracle was not evil, but it was vague intended towards drink, which caused it to be obscure in many matters of judgment and focus. Its only answer to the girl's question was that within one story that she would hear in her lifetime was the truth she sought. The girl went off and collected stories, which she chases to this day, not knowing which of the thousands hold the truth. Such is the danger of a foolish question and the wisdom of an unspoken one. So what are you doing here? I collect tales and trade them with others who've tales of their own. May we trade tales? Yeah, okay. Other questions? What can you tell me about this place? This is part of Mistress Grace's story, which is not mine to tell. She has said that when she nears the end of her years, she shall tell me, and only if I pledge never to share it with another. She hopes that she will never need to tell me her tale, for she hopes I will find my own story before that time and leave this place. I think she fears my life will be squandered in searching for this tale and not acting upon what I already know. Yves sighs softly, but it cannot be helped. Your own story? Once upon a time, a girl came to be an... Oh, right, yeah. One... Yeah, I've already asked about that. Not maybe trade tales. Can you tell me... One of the stories you've already shared again? No. Can you tell me about the Silent Prostitute? Echo? Yves frowns, thinking. I once heard a tale of a girl who knew the word that spoken would undo the multiverse. Perhaps this is Echo. Ask Delora, though. I understand that she sometimes meets with the one who knew Echo before she stopped speaking. Okay. I'm trying to find Vivian's scent. Do you know where it might be? Yves shakes her head. Speak with Nenny. She's forever pacing about, observing everything intently. I'm trying to find Marissa's Crimson Veil. Do you know where it might be? Shakes her head, but Marissa's is an interesting tale. Would you hear it? Sure. Once upon a time, in a world of heroes and a time of petty childish gods, there were 3 sisters. Cursed with a hideous appearance, they were considered demons by the people of the land and forever shunned. One missed her sisters terribly, yet left that world with its shame behind, but exchanged the pettiness of a pantheon for the pettiness of self. Do you know anything about Taylorville Puzzle Well? The tale of Taylorville Puzzle Well, frightener of children, begins and ends with a question. What can change the nature of a man? Many were the times she posed this riddle to those who approached her, those who sought to glean from her the strange magics that she alone seemed to possess. All attempted to answer her query, but to no avail, and they found the price of their wrong answer to be some horrible fate, always more terrible than the last victims. To recount their various torments would be to speak of things that nightmares are woven from. Okay. The tale strikes me in this way. Ravel herself knew not the answer to this question, but she lusted for such an answer. Only the why of the matter remained in question. Why did the nature of a man matter to one of the Grey Sisters, especially to one of such power as Ravel? It is said that she put the question to the Lady of Pain, not directly, but shouted it to Sigil itself, daring for the lady to answer. When no reply was forthcoming, she worded terrible magics that threatened to open the cage and let the fury of the plains roll in like a wave. She received no answer other than banishment. To this day, no one knows the answer to Ravel's question. And now there is no one to petition for. Ravel herself is gone. Lost to the plains.
Updated my journal.
Huh. Oh, wait, there's more. Though my tale ends with Ravel's demise, there are some that claim the hag still lives. There is a silent prostitute here who once talked of such things, but she speaks no longer. If she would speak to you, she might tell you more of Ravel. Okay. Right now I have this. I've spoken to 9 prostitutes altogether. Do you know who or where the 10th student is? Yves shakes her head. Speak with Nenny, she's forever pacing about. Okay, so what if I go and speak with Fall from Grace? Where the hell is she? I don't know. Oh, there. Jeez. Why is she over here? What a weird place to be stood.
How may I help you?
Right. I spoke to the 9 other students, as you asked, but I could not find the 10th. Ooh. So, and you could not find the 10th student. How curious. I think Lewis is the 10th student, in his own way. She nods very well, and your thoughts? Oh. Oh, I don't know what I should say to get her on. I mean, I did save, so I can always just do whatever. So I've learned what it means to aspire to be a censor, and that it is better to go in search of experience rather than to have it come to you. Lewis is in serious need of a carpenter to turn that libido of his. Teaching within a sheltered environment such as this only harms the student, and the planes themselves are often the best teacher. I think honestly, the best thing to say would be number 2. Because I've learned what it is to aspire to be a censor. It's better to go in search of experience rather than have it come to you. Falls from Grace nods. Very well, I will travel with you if you still desire my company. I do. Hey!
Oh, Mistress High and Mighty will be joining us. What do we need her for?
You couldn't possibly understand.
I wish she would fall from great height. I might even bump her off myself.
Jesus. Oh my god, Anna does not like her, obviously. Wait, what's happening? Oh dear! Oh, I forgot she heals. I was very scared when I just saw her casting something. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Jesus. That was... Oh man, that was kind of scary. Alright, there we go. Right, so now that we've had somebody else join, it's time to exhaust all of the dialogue. Alrighty. Can you tell me about the Tanari? The Tanari are fiends, some call them demons. They've embraced evil for chaos' sake. They dwell upon the poisoned plains of the Abyss, where they feed on their own rage and lash out across the multiverse, despoiling all they touch. They forever seek to tempt others into committing crimes of passion and vice. Are you a Tanari? That is correct. I am a lesser Tanari, more specifically, a succubus. She gives a soft laugh. That soft sigh even, not a laugh. I'm afraid we're a little too common in the lower planes and elsewhere for our own good. Most of my race spend their time seducing mortals with various pleasures of the flesh. And you? I like to think that I have distanced myself from that. It is ultimately a trivial and non-productive way for one to spend one's time here in the multiverse. There's much more to life, wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Alright. How did you come by the name Fall from Grace? The meaning of names is a complicated subject. There is much to be said and a great deal that is better left unsaid. Is Fall from Grace your real name? Perhaps. She smiles slightly, perhaps not. There are names which are given and names which are earned. Who is to say which is the real one? I think the name which is earned carries a greater weight. And maybe so. Why do you think that? Because a name that is earned is not arbitrary. A name that is earned tells of what you've accomplished. Grace nods. Your point is well taken. So why are you called Fall from Grace? Would it matter? She smiles. It is an earned name. It matters to me. I would like to know how you came to be called that. I have fallen from my people. Some would say risen from my people. Perhaps. But fall feels more right to me. She looks at you questioningly. Does that make sense? Ooh. Yes, it does. After all, fall carries with it an underlying sense of loss. Fall from Grace is silent for a moment, then nods thoughtfully. Yes, perhaps that is why it felt as it did. I came to terms with the loss long ago, but the name has remained. Are you sure you've come to terms with it? Fall from Grace meets your gaze, and you are once again struck by the brilliant shade of blue of her eyes. It is turbulent, like the ocean before a storm. I had thought so, yet in speaking to you, you have caused me to realize some things. She smiles. You have my thanks. Well, if you want to talk about it, let me know, alright? She nods. You are most kind. I will do so.
Yes.
Right. Can you tell me what you know about the Sensits? The Sensits are a faction of Sigil that are devoted to experience. Without sensation, we are blinded to much of the multiverse. Thus, Sensits seek to experience as much as possible. When all is experienced, then the truth of the multiverse shall reveal itself. Interesting philosophy. Can I join them? You only need to be a student of life. I think I've already gone through this. They would inquire at the Civic Fest Hall. Yeah, I've already spoken about that. Can you teach me anything of the art, Grace? Ooh. Fall from Grace shakes her head slightly. No, I do not believe so. The art and the disciplines I practice are different. How do you mean? My powers as you see them stem from my faith, not from manipulating energies as the art does. The art is a mechanism by which the power of the multiverse may be harnessed, through gestures, rituals and devices. My powers come to me through a different means. My faith and the nature of my belief allows some of the multiverse to reveal itself to me. The nature of your belief? What do you believe in? I believe in experience. I believe a person may be changed for better, or for the better, the more of the multiverse they are allowed to perceive, and the more of the multiverse is allowed to perceive them. My belief, in the nature of experience allows me to... She pauses for a moment, thinking. I suppose the best explanation is that my faith allows me to see things differently. When you see the multiverse in such a way, you learn how to change things, mending wounds, seeing a person's heart, and so on, just by willing them to happen. But those changes you make seem a lot like spells. How do you learn to do those things? Do you have a spell book? No, my spells, as you call them, they come to me after I have rested and centered myself. When I sleep and awaken, I can focus myself once more. The amount of faith required to change the multiverse around me can be quite taxing on the psyche. I'm afraid. Just being able to see how the change how to change things is not enough. You must have the strength to make the change happen and last.
Yes.
Huh. So if I said, can you teach me? How do you mean? Okay. Can you teach me to see things the way you do? I cannot teach you to see the multiverse in such a way. One must learn to see it, and in their own way, not through the eyes of another. She smiled slightly. I do not think you of all people need my guidance in such a matter. I find myself learning much more from you than you from I. Okay.
Yes.
Fair enough. Do you ever use weapons? No, there is seldom the need, and I find that I cannot bear the touch of cold iron or even steel for long periods of time. In any event, I have a number of natural defenses that tend to discourage attackers, such as the kiss of a succubus is lethal to mortals, though they rarely realize the danger until their death is almost upon them. Far from Grace sighs, I can resort to it when the need arises. She seems, like she doesn't want to. Wait, I had some other questions. Whoa! These are different. Alright, whatever. Why did you set up the brothel? I established the brothel to give those lustful fevers and strike the mind more avenues of expression rather than the simply carnal. Yeah, we've been over that. Part of the answer to your question requires that you know that I am a member of the Society of Sensations. Right, why is that established? The brothel. I think I've already been over these. Yeah, other questions. Can I read your diary? No. Please? Gives a slight smile. Elaine must have her secrets. Alright. Yves said you had a tale you wouldn't share with her. That is correct. Yves needs no more tales adding to her misery. And my tale would not serve her search for truth. Would you tell me? It is a long tale, and not as interesting as some would make it out to be. She sighs. It is intertwined in other tales of war and slavery. It is not a pleasant tale. I would still hear it. Very well. No, my past is not a long one, at least by Teneri standards. I do not know if you are familiar with the Teneri, but we are a race of the Abyss, a staggered series of planes filled with chaos and evil hearts. Go on. I am a Teneri, a fiend, succubus. I grew up upon the first plane of the Abyss. My mother was a succubus herself. As I'm sure you are aware, succubi tempt mortals to bring their souls to the Abyss. My mother was among the finest, seducing countless mortal men to their eternal damnation. She now dwells in the Abyss, selling her children into slavery. Oh. Your mother sold you into slavery? Yes, she sold me to the Bartazu, the blood enemies of the Tenari. I think she rather expected that they would kill me. Despite her knowledge of other subjects, she knows little of their culture and the delight they take in tormenting others. How did you escape? The Bartazu are a proud species. The Thor a Tenari could best them at anything was intolerable to them. So I challenged one of the proudest of the pit fiends to a contest of improvisation, and my Tenari nature afforded me an advantage. You see, the Tenari are creatures of chaos, wild and unpredictable. The Bartazu are more cunning, with orderly hearts. They understand improvisation, but they are not its best practitioners, and thus I won my freedom, and my path brought me to Sigil. Oh. Other questions? Can you tell me what you know of Ravel again? Right, I think I've already been over that. Someone at the fest hall. Other questions? Other questions? Right, so I've already asked about that. I want to talk about our companions. Huh. Oof. Who should I speak with? Let's go on. Let's speak of Mor first. Mor is most peculiar. Here we go. I've seen a great deal in my life, but nothing quite like him. He behaves somewhat like a murmur. Granted, there's no denying he is knowledgeable, but he has a certain... She sniffs the air and wrinkles her nose. Batorian smell about him. Batorian smell? Yes, but he's not a Bartazu, at least of any variety I've encountered. The smell alone, however, makes me treat the skull with caution. What do you mean when you say Bartazu and Batorian? My apologies. Bator is one of the outer planes, the home of a race of fiends called the Bartazu. They are evil creatures, yet they are organized and lawful in many of their behaviors. Some might call them devils. They believe in contracts and hierarchy. In many ways, they are like evil bureaucrats. About the Batorian smell? Okay. Bartazu. What were you saying about Murmur before? Murmurs are encyclopedias of knowledge. The owner may ask them questions, and if they possess the knowledge, they will inform the user of what it knows. And Mort is a Murmur? I don't believe so. Mort lacks the silvery metal that Murmurs customarily have, and he seems to have an attitude of his own. Such qualities are not present in conventional murmurs. Grey shrugs slightly. He may be one, but he's unlikely any I've ever encountered. Ah. So I believe he is a murmur. I don't believe he's a murmur either. Perhaps there is some test to verify his authenticity, but I would not do one if you value him as a friend. If you do, then you must accept what he has told you. That's all I wish to discuss. Right, now it's time to talk to Now it's time to talk to Mort about him not being a murmur.
Hey, what's eating you, Chief?
Here we go. So, where is it? No. Oh, there we go. You said you're a murmur, right, Mort? Yeah, a murmur's a floating encyclopedia. You put information in, you get information out. Here we go. But aren't murmurs made of silvery metal? So, maybe some are, but I'm not. And there's stranger things on the plains that are, Chief. Than that, Chief. I don't think you're a murmur, Mort. What are you? What's with the interrogation? What do you know about murmurs anyway? Ooh. Okay. I know enough to think you're lying to me. First, that bit about the missing line from my back saying not to trust you. Then this. What am I supposed to think? Okay, I'm not a murmur, but I know a lot of stuff, so I might as well be one. What are you then? I'm a floating skull who knows a lot. What about that Batorian smell you have? What would you know about what Bator smells like, unless... Hey, you've been talking about